The man was a hunk with eight-pack abs just a moment ago, but as soon as he emerged from the nutrient solution, he shriveled up like a deflated balloon. Fortunately, the man quickly grabbed an apple and stuffed it into his mouth, which activated his body cells. As Aru ate more and more, his shriveled muscles were revitalized. While Aru was feasting, the seed of rebirth hidden in his severed arm began to sprout. Incredibly, what usually takes an ordinary person 2.5 years to sprout took Aru only 2.5 seconds. Soon Aru finished all the food, but it was far from enough. Without the nutrients from food, Aru's body began to shrink again. The burly, bearded man instructed the others to prepare food, suggesting they bring the entire supermarket if possible. Thus, Aru ate from day to night, but no matter how much he ate, he still felt hungry. It seemed that all the nutrients he consumed were absorbed by the seed in his severed arm. Exhausted from eating, Aru was about to rest in the nutrient solution when suddenly, an unexpected event occurred. He spat out a mouthful of phlegm from 82 years ago. Then his body began to ache intensely. While everyone was shocked, the bearded man calmly explained that this was normal. In just one day, Aru's severed arm had already started to grow. So the intense pain was merely a side effect. To alleviate Aru's pain, the bearded man specially prepared honey that could relieve pain. Whether Aru could endure it depended entirely on his own willpower. At this moment, Aru's severed arm was rapidly regenerating at a visible speed. But just then, the bearded man suddenly realized that the honey was running out. To save Aru, everyone began to target the paper vine bees on the grassland. Aru was trembling in pain and was about to give up when fortunately everyone returned just in time. Meanwhile, Komatsu was preparing to make a shikun soup. However, after thousands of attempts, he still couldn't replicate the taste from ancient times, so he sought advice from Granny Camillo. What he didn't know was that Granny Camillo had spent 30 years creating the century soup. Upon hearing this, Komatsu was devastated. However, after Granny Camillo tasted Komatsu's soup, she furrowed her brows and didn't offer much praise. Granny Camillo simply told Komatsu that his soup was missing one final ingredient. He needed to listen to the voice of the ingredients. He needed to learn to communicate with the ingredients. Komatsu was immediately inspired and rushed back to the kitchen. After Komatsu left, Granny Camillo slowly revealed that what Komatsu achieved in 3 days had taken her 2.5 years. It's truly a case of the new generation surpassing the old. Back in the kitchen, Komatsu began trying to communicate with the ingredients as Granny Camillo had instructed. He put his heart into every step. Finally, after 2.5 hours of simmering, Komatsu produced a bowl of crystal-clear soup. He eagerly took a sip, and a strong sense of happiness surged through him. Just as Komatsu was immersed in joy, he suddenly felt that something was missing from the century soup. While Komatsu pondered what the final ingredient could be, the little penguin outside the door became excited and restless. Seeing the penguin, Komatsu thought QB was hungry, so he placed the century soup on the ground. The little penguin drooled uncontrollably at the sight of the soup. However, when its drool fell into the soup, something magical happened. The shikun soup was born. Unexpectedly, the little penguin's drool was the final ingredient for the soup. Komatsu took a spoonful to taste, and as soon as the soup touched his lips, he made a mischievous face. He had finally recreated the ancient century soup. At the same time, Aru suddenly awoke from his coma. He gasped for air and looked down to find that his severed arm had regrown. Aru was overjoyed, knowing he could reward himself again. Then Aru slowly stood up. Despite being miles apart, the cells in his body told him that Komatsu's shikun soup was complete. This is a garlic meteorite worth billions, with extremely high nutritional value. Eating just half can transform a weakling into a hunk instantly. However, processing it is extremely difficult. Because this garlic has absorbed the essence of heaven and earth for years, its powerful effects have made its shell incredibly hard. If not handled properly, it could be ruined. Therefore, the task of preparing it fell to Komatsu. Despite his exceptional culinary skills, he struggled for half a day without even peeling the outer skin. Seeing this, Jaren smiled slightly. If Komatsu continued like this, he might never get to eat the garlic. But in the next moment, slap, he was proven wrong. Face. In just 2.5 minutes, Komatsu found a way to peel the garlic. It involved roasting it at high temperatures and then slicing through the fibers with a small knife. The kitchen knife smoothly sliced through the garlic's outer skin, and soon Komatsu had completely peeled it. But the strange thing was, when he tried to cut into the flesh, the fibers would automatically change direction. No matter how Komatsu tried to cut it, the knife couldn't penetrate the flesh. Just when Jaren thought the kid was out of tricks, Komatsu surprised him by bringing over some cheese cabbage. He placed the sliced cabbage in hot water for 2.5 minutes, then took it out and applied it to the garlic. While Jaren was puzzled, Komatsu explained that the cheese cabbage contained many microorganisms that could easily break down even the hard garlic flesh. Jaren was completely amazed by Komatsu's skills. Meanwhile, Komatsu was entirely focused on preparing the garlic, unaware that Jaren had already neutralized the poison in his body. Jaren smiled kindly. While Komatsu was engrossed in preparing the garlic, Jaren suddenly approached him from behind. Eager to taste Komatsu's culinary creation, Jaren couldn't wait any longer. Suddenly, Jaren grabbed Komatsu from behind. Komatsu was startled, but then Jaren slowly reached for Komatsu's kitchen knife. Unexpectedly, Jaren was actually guiding Komatsu on where to cut. Komatsu thought Jaren was going to force himself on him, but Jaren just wanted to help him with the garlic. In his youth, Jaren was poor and friendless, but he had an immense passion for cooking. In Komatsu, he saw a reflection of his younger self. After 2.5 hours of effort, the garlic meteorite was finally complete. Komatsu and Jaren brought it before everyone. Aru was amazed, while Koko smiled slightly as everything was within his expectations. He believed that under Komatsu's guidance, Jaren could release the shadows in his heart and rediscover his passion for cooking. When the giant pot lid was lifted, everyone was stunned. Although the garlic meteorite had shrunk significantly, no one knew where to start eating. Before anyone could speak, a drop of golden liquid dripped from the top of the garlic. In the next moment, the garlic shot into the sky like a cannonball, bursting into a spectacular firework display. Seeing this, everyone smiled with happiness. After the dazzling fireworks, a golden meteor fell into the dish. This was the true form of the garlic meteorite. As the smoke cleared, the garlic sensibly divided itself into equal portions. Then, everyone eagerly picked up their portions. Suddenly, Komatsu let out a scream of disbelief. After eating the garlic, Komatsu had transformed into a muscular hunk. Not only Komatsu, but everyone who ate the garlic became more muscular. But the most exaggerated transformation was Koko's. His muscles were so impressive that even Ma Yongshiro would be envious. Seeing everyone turn into hunks, Aru couldn't wait to eat his portion. At that moment, his mind exploded. The taste was 1,000,000 times better than top-grade Wagyu beef. As everyone rejoiced over their bodily transformations, Jaren was deep in thought. In the end, he decided to hand over the American casino to Amu for management, while he himself... This is a giant sushi 3 meters thick and 100 kilometers long. However, its main function isn't to be eaten, but to tell fortunes. By eating in the direction the sushi falls, it will guide you to find anything you desire. However, an ordinary person might not even manage 2.5 meters before being stuffed to death. To make this sushi, Aru specifically sought out the sleazy sushi master, Mask. But because Aru's wish was too grand, Mask didn't have the ingredients to make the giant sushi. So Aru and his companions set out to find the ingredients. They first went to New Energy Village to shake turtles and obtained seaweed. Then they caught a billion-dollar beauty belly fish. After that, they went to King Island to retrieve the rice vinegar for the sushi. Finally, they risked being overwhelmed by the stench to successfully bring back a durian egg that was 10,000 times smellier than flying fish roe. At last, Aru gathered all the ingredients. But seeing Mask's sleazy expression, Aru and the others worried that he might mix up the hard-earned ingredients. But it was too late to regret now. The villagers carried over a giant cutting board. The board was 10 meters long and 50 meters wide, even larger than a professional wrestling ring by 10 times. Mask was eager to start. He lifted a piece of fish 10 times heavier than himself and casually tossed it to the center of the ring. As the match bell rang, Mask began his performance. He leaped into the air, diving onto the fish, then gave it a powerful back slam. Before the fish could react, Mask started pounding it with his special sauce, continuously hammering the fish. With each pound, the fish became more tender and firm, a technique comparable to the best. It was clean and hygienic. Then, Mask took out the durian egg and beauty belly fish, using the same method to pound them for flavor, and finally gave the seaweed a full-body massage. The cooking continued from day to night, and from night to day. After 3 days and nights of pounding, Mask was drained of his last bit of strength. At this point, the fortune-telling sushi was finally complete. The giant sushi stood like a pillar reaching the sky, even piercing a hole through the clouds. As Aru wished to find the 10 spirit threads, the giant sushi began to sway. Finally, the sushi fell. Next, as long as Aru and the others finished the sushi, they could find the legendary 1004. The sushi had a diameter of 5 meters and stretched over several hills, with no end in sight. But for the foodie Aru, it was a piece of cake. 2.5 seconds later, they had advanced 2 meters. Their appetite was unmatched by any competitive eater. Their pace was as fast as light. This way of eating made the nearby cow exclaim in amazement. Aru grew more excited as he ate, biting into a juicy sausage eggplant. Komatsu also gnawed on fish meat from his armpit, then took a piece of foot-marinated beef and the durian egg that was so smelly even Brother Pancake shook his head. Hmm? 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 Hmm?